as with everything else,
32,
we'll pay no
Common
attention.
Standing Committee on Health. Before we begin, I would like to ask all in-person participants to read the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants.
Je n'ai pas d'interprétation.
Okay.
Non, mais c'est parce que je l'avais organisé.
Welcome to meeting number 132 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Health. Est-ce que c'est la fonction, Monsieur Thériault?
Are you hearing interpretation, Mr. Thériault? Perfect.
To begin, I'd like to ask all in-person participants to read the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters. In accordance with our routine motion, I'm informing the committee that Dr. Pelosi has completed and duly passed the required connection test in advance of the meeting. Pursuant to the order of reference of June 12, 2024, the committee will resume its study of Bill C-277, an act to establish a national strategy on brain injuries. I'd like to welcome our two witnesses today, Alistair McGregor, the Member of Parliament for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, and representing Brain Injury Canada, Michelle McDonald. Thank you both for being with us. Congratulations, Mr. McGregor, on getting to this stage with your private member's bill. You have 5 minutes each for an opening statement, and we're going to start with you, Mr. McGregor. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair and members of the Standing Committee on Health, thank you for inviting me to appear today. This is a momentous day for me as the sponsor of Bill C-277, and it is truly a highlight of the journey I began 6 years ago in 2018 when I first discussed the idea of a national strategy on brain injuries with my constituent, Janelle Brice-Biagioni, the excellent witness you met last week on Thursday. I also want to acknowledge and thank Tim Fleiser of the Concussion Legacy Foundation of Canada, Elizabeth Pilon from Concussion Cafe Yukon, and Professor Myriam Beauchamp of the University of Montreal, who appeared as witnesses and provided incredible testimony in support of the bill. The first version of this bill appeared as C-323, which I introduced in the final days of the 43rd Parliament. That bill immediately received the attention of Michelle McDonald and Brain Injury Canada, who is sitting with me here today and deserves a lot of credit for how far we've come. After the 2021 federal election, we partnered together to craft the bill you see before you today, C-277. Although I'm here as the sponsor of C-277, I can in no way take sole credit for its success. The campaign supporting this bill has been the result of people across Canada, those living with a brain injury, their friends, families, and support networks, researchers, and brain injury support organizations. They are the ones who have shared their personal stories, written to MPs across the country, and pushed for action to deal with what is truly a national problem. Municipalities, who are on the front lines of the mental health crisis gripping our country, have also been proactive. We received early support from Vancouver Island communities, and this has continued to grow since then. Recently, the Union of BC Municipalities endorsed a resolution in full support of Bill C-277. This passionate and committed advocacy resulted in the unanimous support of 324 votes in the House of Commons at second reading on June 12th earlier this year. I want to again thank members from all parties for this overwhelming support. The brain injury community has been watching, and they are feeling hope. So why do we need a legislated national strategy? Colleagues, you've all seen the statistics. You can appreciate what a devastating impact brain injuries have had on Canadian society. And while an immediate concern might be directed towards the lack of proper healthcare resources, we know brain injuries affect our communities in much wider ways. We know there is a high degree of brain injury amongst the homeless population. We know that people with brain injuries have become victims of toxic street drugs and that overdoses from these same drugs have caused brain injuries, resulting in a vicious cycle. And we know that many people involved in the revolving door of our criminal justice system have brain injuries. There are many cognitive, emotional, and behavioral symptoms from brain injuries: anger management, processing information, high-risk behaviors, inappropriate emotional responses, lack of impulse control, memory impairment, and poor judgment. You can all imagine how even a few of these symptoms can lead to negative interactions and problems in society if the cause is not understood. There is a poor understanding of brain injury and its consequences for both health and social care systems. This is a problem that is bigger than any one province or territory can handle on its own. People are suffering. There is a desperate need for services right across the country. The enormous societal and economic costs of the status quo demand that we rise up to the challenge of the moment and meet it with a strong national framework and strategy that will help guide, not dictate, collaborative federal and provincial policies to support and improve brain injury awareness, prevention, and treatment, as well as the rehabilitation and recovery of persons living with a brain injury. By legislating this requirement for a national strategy, we can truly start treating this major societal problem with the urgency and resources it needs. With proper treatment and support, many people with brain injuries can return to productive and engaging lives. C277 will provide a legislative framework to help with this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGregor. Next, on behalf of Brain Injury Canada, Michelle McDonald, Chief Executive Officer. Thanks for being with us, Ms. McDonald. You have the floor.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today and for the committee's support of Bill C277. Brain injury can impact every aspect of a person's life. This includes changes to their independence, abilities, work, and relationships with family, friends, and the world around them. An outdated statistic cites there are approximately 1.5 million individuals living with the effects of brain injury. The true number is likely much higher. Brain injury is not just a one-time event. For many, it marks the beginning of a chronic condition that they must navigate for the rest of their lives. Thanks to advancements in diagnostics and treatment, we are now able to keep people alive after severe injuries. However, we do not have a healthcare system that is built to support their needs over the long term. While many people living with brain injury are falling through the cracks, there are also many people that lead stable lives yet still lack access to the services and supports they need to live well. The invisible nature of brain injury poses significant challenges as many face judgment, stigma, and isolation. This invisibility can hinder access to necessary supports and accommodations, making it difficult for affected individuals to navigate daily life. Brain injury is deeply intersectional, influencing and being influenced by a range of personal circumstances and systemic barriers. In terms of mental health, individuals with brain injury are at a higher risk of developing mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and PTSD. The unemployment rate for individuals with brain injuries is significantly higher than the national average. This can lead to poor psychosocial outcomes, decreased community integration, and economic dependence. Stable and appropriate housing is a driving issue. Depending on area, the wait time for brain injury-specific housing is anywhere from 10 to 20 years. Families often shoulder the care for a loved one when there are no appropriate housing options, and this is often done with little or no financial supports. For many, these barriers lead to homelessness. A recent meta-analysis found that 53% of homeless people report having experienced a brain injury in their lifetime. These people are not receiving any care or rehabilitation for their brain injury. Brain injury can lead to opioid use, and opioid overdose can cause a brain injury. There is an urgent need for a comprehensive strategy that promotes prevention, rehabilitation, and support for these affected individuals who are often younger in age with a normal life expectancy and face long-term challenges that are not adequately addressed. There is also growing awareness about intimate partner violence and brain injury. Up to 92% of women survivors of intimate partner violence may also experience a traumatic brain injury. It is also essential to highlight the prevalence of brain injury is higher among Indigenous, First Nation, and Métis peoples in Canada when compared to the general population. They often face systemic barriers that limit their access to healthcare services, including geographic and financial barriers, as well as cultural and language barriers. A coordinated national approach to prevention, treatment, and recovery in the form of a national strategy is long overdue for Canada. Accurate data is essential for saving lives and informing decision-making, yet Canada urgently lacks comprehensive long-term data. The gap hinders our understanding of the ongoing challenges faced by individuals living with brain injuries. A strategy would improve data collection and healthcare tracking and would provide valuable insights to shape effective policies at the provincial and territorial levels. A national strategy would boost research funding, leading to better diagnosis, treatment, and a deeper understanding of brain injury as a chronic condition. This would facilitate the development of effective long-term interventions and robust community supports. A national strategy would enhance awareness and education, equipping healthcare providers with the necessary knowledge while raising public understanding to reduce stigma. A national strategy would establish coordinated national guidelines for prevention, diagnosis, and management, ensuring equitable access to quality care for all Canadians. A national strategy would provide essential support for individuals and families navigating the healthcare system, including sustainability support for the 50-plus brain injury associations filling in the gaps for the healthcare system. Finally, a national strategy would allow us to leverage reliable data while prioritizing prevention and early intervention, ultimately enabling us to significantly reduce healthcare costs through proactive measures and community support. Investing in a national strategy is not only a moral imperative, but also a wise economic decision that could yield substantial savings for the healthcare system. Canada needs a national strategy on brain injury to ensure every Canadian has access to the resources they need to recover and thrive after a brain injury. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. We're going to now proceed with rounds of questions, starting with the Conservatives. Dr. Ellis for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. McGregor, for being here, and Ms. McDonald. Obviously, we've heard from expert witnesses on this, and it certainly is. We've identified, I think, some knowledge gaps as well. One of the things that we asked many witnesses was to present a little bit to the committee with respect to symptoms that individuals may suffer with, whether they, regardless of the type of injury that they received, and it seemed difficult to present that. One of the things that, of course, we heard from witnesses was specifically related to children who have had head injuries, whether it doesn't matter what the cause, whether they be birth-related or related to injuries, sadly, sometimes related to things like, shaken baby syndrome and moving on through the years to sporting injuries. Is that part of the hope that we'll be able to unpackage some of those symptoms for parents and or caregivers to enable them to better identify when children may have had a head injury, for instance, or simply, but not so simply, be also suffering from a mental health issue, because sometimes there's significant overlap. So I wonder if both of you might comment on that. You can decide between yourselves who's going to go first. How's that?
Very much. So children do experience brain injury, and for the very young, it's hard to vocalize their symptoms, and it's often subjective that you look at the symptoms to diagnose. But those with more severe injuries are going to, as I mentioned, it's a chronic condition. This injury is happening to a developing brain, and that will impact their long-term trajectory. And so we need long-term care for them, not just until they're 18 and they come out of the pediatric system. We need to support them over the long term, and that support needs to be individualized, not a one-size-fits-all. It needs to be customized to that individual, as well as their family. Their family needs customized supports as well to help these children through these conditions over their lifespan.
And I think, what I'd add to that is, there's a lot of expertise out there in the field, Dr. Ellis, and I think, we've heard it earlier at this committee. I think my job with this bill was really to try and create that legislative space that helps them do their job in a coordinated fashion. And, we're a big country, we're very regional, and some provinces may have more resources than others, but they're all feeling the effects. And I think with children, because they have a developing brain, the long-term consequences can be quite profound. And I think in addition to what you just heard from Ms. McDonald, I think Mr. Fleiser from last week was also talking about the work that his organization has been doing, especially with respect to kids in sports. So, yeah, I think that's where I can leave it. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for that. One of the other things I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Adrian Dix, who's the Provincial Minister of Health in British Columbia, and certainly, as we know, it's the epicenter for the safe supply drug experiment, which, of course, we're talking about in this committee as well. That being said, one of the concerns that he raised was related to hypoxic brain injury for individuals who suffer from substance use disorder, who've perhaps been very sadly revived many times. Do you think, I know that both of you spoke about that particular type of injury, which sadly, as I said, is becoming more and more prevalent. Is that something that you'll be very directive with this framework in terms of asking people to look at this burgeoning new type of brain injury? And, you know, the other difficulty, of course, is housing those individuals. Not appropriate to house those individuals with perhaps senior or geriatric patients suffering with things like dementia. So do you have any hopes in the framework that that'll be specifically a part of it? Maybe we'll go in the reverse order. Mr. McGregor, maybe you could start.
Yeah, thank you for the great question, Dr. Ellis. I mean, this is truly an issue that is gripping so many communities right across Canada, and I know we have had some very passionate debates in the House of Commons and at various committees on this subject. But, you know, as I said in my opening remarks, it can be like a vicious cycle. You know, you can look at the symptoms that many people with a brain injury exhibit, and they can have poor judgment, impulse control, and other things that may lead them on a path towards drug use as a way of managing what's going on inside their own bodies. But of course, if they get a hypoxic brain injury, then we've got this vicious cycle starting. I think what I wanted to do with Bill C-277 was provide a positive legislative measure that so far we can all get behind as something that is going to tackle some of the spin-off effects from this. And I think from what I've heard from around this table and in the House of Commons, we seem to have a lot of people in agreement that this could be helping that very serious problem in so many of our communities.
And I mean, brain injury opioids can cause brain injury, and brain injury can lead to opioid overdose. So we need integrated care models that address both the substance use and the brain injury. We can't treat one without the other. These people fall in a gray area. They'll be treated for their overdose, but they are not always treated for their brain injury over the long term, and they don't know where they're going for support. And so we need to treat this over the long term.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Next, Mr. Nakvi, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you both for being here. Mr. McGregor, I'll come to you in a moment, but I just wanted to ask a few questions of Ms. McDonald. You mentioned a data point in your opening remarks, 53% of people who are homeless have brain injury. Can you talk to us a little bit about that study and what they found in that study? Because that number is staggering.
Absolutely, it's staggering. So this was done out of the University of British Columbia, where they looked at a series of Canadian data on homelessness, and that 53% was a staggering number, but 25% of those are moderate to severe brain injuries. So these people are living on the street. They don't have access to care. Most of them don't even have health cards. So how are they supposed to get treatment and recover? So we need to understand the path to homelessness. Brain injury can lead to homelessness, and homelessness can lead to brain injury. So we need to understand how people get there with a brain injury and develop supports and preventative strategies so they don't get to that point. We also need to decrease the stigma around homelessness and support these people where they're at. We need housing programs that are geared towards people with brain injuries. They're often excluded because of the behavior impairments, but we need to create programs that are specifically built for people with brain injury rather than trying to house them in long-term care settings where they're not getting the supports that they need. And really, how can we expect someone to seek addiction services or any kind of services if they don't have a place to shower, they don't have clean clothes, they don't have a bed to sleep in? So we need to address it at its core, and this needs to be a community effort with many different stakeholders.
Thank you. I've been told by many folks who work in the housing sector on dealing with homelessness that we have more of a healthcare crisis on our streets than a homelessness crisis, and brain injury are a big part of it. Can you just quickly tell us the breadth and scope of Brain Injury Canada as an organization, what kind of work you do, and I'm assuming that you work in collaboration with other organizations across the country and perhaps internationally as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we're the national charity. There's 50 brain injury associations that are all independent. We all work together with a network. Brain Injury Canada is overseen by a scientific advisory of 35 plus researchers, clinicians from different academic institutions and hospitals from across Canada. So we bring all that knowledge in place in one hub. We also have a 600-page resource website that was funded in part by the Government of Canada. So that's what people come to us for. We're a knowledge mobilizer for the brain injury community. We act as that connection that brings, there's so many different stakeholders, and our role is to bring everyone together to ensure that everyone is communicating, and that's the clinical, research, allied health, all of these community supports. Our role is to bring everyone together, and so that we're furthering the cause of brain injury and prioritizing it within the healthcare system and with our policymakers.
Thank you. I'll come to you, Mr. McGregor. First of all, congratulations. We've spoken about this bill, and I'm supportive of this bill. So I want to thank you for highlighting this really important gap, perhaps in our healthcare system. I did notice that in the legislation, and it's kind of rare, that you name Brain Injury Canada as one of the sources, or the source, I guess, in terms of website and information. Just wondering why you've chosen to do that in this bill, and what about other organizations, as Ms. McDonald mentioned, who also contribute to the work and repository of information that exists when it comes to brain injuries?
I chose Brain Injury Canada because they have just been doing phenomenal work. I don't want to double up on what Michelle already answered, but when I first came out with the first version of this bill in the previous Parliament, it immediately got her attention, and every step of the way in the development of C277, we've had this collaborative working relationship. And I think the part of the reason the bill has been so successful to date is because through Brain Injuries Canada's contacts right across the country, they've been able to mobilize an incredible base of support. And so the brain injury community has been mobilized. They're aware of this bill. They're aware of what this bill hopes to do, in large part because of what Brain Injury Canada has been able to do. So I just felt that they were an organization that deserved to be named in this because of the work that they're already doing, but also because of the close collaborative ties they have with so many other organizations.
But are there other organizations or information that exists, whether academic or community-based, that you have reference to in your bill, or just Brain Injury Canada? Just
Brain Injury Canada, because we believe that it acts as an important hub for all of those other organizations and researchers. It really has been a great organization to bring everyone together, and I think through my relationship with Brain Injury Canada, I have personally been introduced to so many of those other individuals and organizations who are doing this important work right from coast to coast to coast.
Okay, thank you. My last question is in terms of consultations, assuming this bill will pass and get royal assent, and the important work that needs to happen in terms of developing the framework. In your vision, what kind of consultations is needed to develop this framework when it comes to provinces, territories, indigenous peoples, because all those unique elements are extremely important, in my view, that they be considered or factored in the development of this framework?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's why I felt it really important in Section 2 of the bill to really spell out exactly what is going to be expected of the Federal Minister of Health. And while we do have a fairly prescriptive list of what we'd like to see included in the national strategy, I think a lot of those sections are still open enough to interpretation to allow some wiggle room, because we know not all parts of the country are the same. I feel very confident in terms of the consultation that I've done, because this bill actually came about as the result of consultations. It was Janelle Brice-Biagioni. She had done lots of consultation, and this was one of the recommendations of some of those conferences. But even since this bill has been tabled through Brain Injury Canada, I have met with people from right across the country who are heavily involved in this work and are absolutely supportive of all the measures that are contained in this bill.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Mr. Thériault, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McGregor. You know that at the heart of things, we agree that we need to know more and do more prevention, raise more awareness on brain injuries. I have a question that's a matter of principle. This is a national strategy. Is it more effective or more necessary than an action plan, for example?
So, you know, one of the things that I think every member of Parliament goes through when they're contemplating the drafting of a bill, and, you know, when it came to raising awareness about brain injuries, the recommendation that was put to me through Janelle's work was to develop a national strategy. In terms of what that looks like, I mean, it's very open to interpretation. If you look at the first version of my bill, this version is very different because of the collaboration with Brain Injury Canada. And I think, Mr. Thériault, what's important to remember with a national strategy is we're not seeking to dictate, but it's really seeking to build an atmosphere of collaboration with all of the stakeholders that are named. I think the reason I chose a legislated national strategy is because I think this issue is incredibly important, and I wanted to have those legislative guardrails in place so that no matter what the political persuasion of the government at the day, this is still going to be a requirement that's in place in law for a federal government to follow, because I think the brain injury community has been waiting long enough. We know what the gaps are like. We know how this problem is affecting our communities, and I wanted this to be a committed action plan for the federal government to act upon in consultation with provincial governments and everyone else who's listed there. So that's why I chose this particular method and listed all of these details.
On est conscient qu'on a besoin de...
We know that we need an action plan. Does it need to become legislation? That's a question that I'll leave open-ended for now. But I'm not sure how I feel about the answer. That's not why I wouldn't approve a bill, but provinces and Quebec have action plans. And so this is coordination work and sharing best practices. But there is something in your bill, and it pertains to research. That is a federal jurisdiction, and we do need to know more. And so this aspect of the national strategy needs to be at the forefront of the strategy. The more we invest in research and the more we know things, we will be able to fight the stigmas and understand the issues that people face more generally. In point B of your bill, and given what you just said and talked about collaboration, and I'll take your word for it, you talked about determining the needs for training. Hopefully you would be open to an amendment collaborating to identify needs for training. I believe that that would make this national strategy easier to digest for provinces that are struggling to offer care to people because they don't have the resources that the federal government should be transferring. If we want this to work, we need to create partnerships with them. They can't feel like the federal government will be determining everything. The success of this strategy will be based on collaboration and identifying needs, and not determining what those needs are for them. They know what the needs, they will be able to know what the needs are because they're on the field. I don't know if I have a lot of time left, but identifying an organization in a bill, I'm not sure I've ever seen this before, and I'm not saying that it's not relevant necessarily, but why include that in your bill?
Well, I think if you go to my exchange with Mr. Nakvi on that, it's because Brain Injury Canada has just had such an incredible number of relationships with so many people who are doing this work right across the country, and they were extremely important in helping me draft the version of the bill that you see today. So I just have always seen Brain Injury Canada as a natural hub for this kind of discussion, and they have been incredibly important in allowing me to meet with some of the people who are working on the front lines of dealing with this crisis.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Julian, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, Mr. McGregor. You've beaten the odds in terms of private members' legislation and getting it to the committee, and so congratulations are in order. Still a ways to go, for sure, and I'll come back to you in a moment, but I did want to start with Ms. McDonald. And you've talked about the issues around prevention, treatment, and recovery. And admittedly, those are very complex issues. What do you hope this bill achieves in terms of getting it passed and the next steps?
That's a great question. Is my thing? Okay. So I hope brain injury achieves the same recognition that cancer or diabetes it has as an impactful and lifelong condition requiring dedication and attention from our federal, provincial, and territorial healthcare systems. We need standardized data. So I hope it would lead to standardized data on the incidence and the prevalence of brain injury so that we can inform policy and improve the allocation of healthcare dollars where it's needed most. More education and awareness specific to brain injury about prevention, treatment, and for newcomers to Canada, for newcomers in the healthcare realm, of the challenges faced by those living with brain injury so they can provide more informed and customized care. Research dollars to be dedicated specifically to brain injury rather than the brain as a whole. We need to differentiate. Research should focus across the lifespan, from acute to chronic, multi-center, and more research into community-based interventions. Address the intersections, mental health, homelessness, legal systems, education and prevention, and the implementation of prevention measures. And most importantly, all of this has to be driven by those with lived experience. They are the true experts, and often we forget that when we're developing policy and programs, but everything we do needs to be developed with the individuals that are living with it every day and with their family members who are caring for them.
That is very eloquent, and you talked earlier in your presentation about it impacting every aspect of a person's life, and I know from personal experience, a member of my family who's been living with a brain injury, how exact that is. It does touch on every aspect, and so I appreciate your response on what the bill should achieve. Now, we've also talked a bit, and there's been other questions around toxic drug use. We have a substance use crisis in this country. Can you discuss how this issue intersects with brain injury and how a national strategy could play a role both in prevention and in effective treatment?
Yeah, well, very often we talk about the stats, but there are real people behind these numbers, so I just want to talk really briefly about Jacob Wilson. In August 2018, Jacob was 21. He was hit by a pickup truck as a pedestrian and suffered a catastrophic brain injury. In the 3 years that followed, he struggled with psychosis and turned to drug use. In November 2021, Jacob died of a fentanyl overdose after having been turned away twice in the 48 hours before he died from the hospital. So quoted by his mother, Shirley, the same healthcare system that rescued him and stabilized him and kept him alive when he was run over turned him away at the emergency department when they could have saved our life. So we need a healthcare system that if we're going to save people, we need a healthcare system that's going to treat them well and ensure they can live well after. So we need integrated care models, as I mentioned, that address both the substance use and the brain injury. They need to be built to be accessible for people with brain injury. So they need to take into account the information processing challenges, the memory impairments. 12-step programs are effective, but if someone can't remember 2 steps in a sequence, then that is a huge barrier. So these need to be we need more community supports. We don't want to wait till people are in crisis. We very much do crisis medicine, crisis reaction, but we need to not wait till people get there. We need to provide the supports and services that they need so that they don't get to that point, and they don't have to turn to drug use to feel better. And then we also need to have more data and research on this specific topic of those who do survive. We focus on the deaths, but those who do survive are living most likely with hypoxic brain injuries, are not always getting the care they need, and we need to create a healthcare system that provides those. And a lot of that can be done in the community, which is cost effective, and it keeps people in the communities where they have their networks, their social systems, and the resources that are going to help them thrive.
Thank you very much for that. Now, you mentioned in your presentation, you referenced some of the population groups that have a higher incidence of brain injury. Could you speak more to that now, the impacts in certain groups in Canada of brain injuries that are disproportionate?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mentioned Indigenous people are highly higher representation of brain injury and are not getting the same health care. They have poorer health outcomes. A low income, and it can lead to brain injury. They live in riskier environments, less safe environments, but don't also have the access to the same care and supports. Women, this shadow pandemic that happened during or the parallel pandemic that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic of women who suffered intimate partner violence. And we also know that women have different health outcomes because of hormonal challenges, different, just basic living of having to be caregivers. Newcomers to Canada, they don't have the same access to resources. They don't perhaps have the same knowledge of our healthcare system or of brain injury. I mean, there's so many. We're probably at the almost our time, yep. But it is so impactful. The homeless, people in prison system. Stats have said over 80% of people within our prison system have self-reported brain injuries. That is an astonishing number.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Yeah, you were right when you said we're at time. Ms. Goodridge, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of our witnesses here today. So I have one really quick question, and I think to build off of some of the good points that were raised by Mr. Theriault. And so my one question to you, Mr. McGregor, is, so what would happen if Brain Injury Canada ceased to exist if they're designated as a partner?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and certainly, this bill is in your committee's hands to figure out the language. I think maybe one thing I would like to note is, last week when we had Tim Fleiser here as a witness from the Concussion Legacy Foundation of Canada, I believe he said that he, representing his organization, supported the bill as written. So that's another major organization that does incredible work across Canada, and even they recognize that the wording of the bill is good as is.
I'm simply asking that as a question, because that is the one question I had, and so perhaps, Michelle, you have, I do, clearly everyone, I think, around this room supports this bill. I'm simply asking a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the wording of the bill, it's Brain Injury Canada is a partner on a knowledge hub. The government of Canada has already invested through a 3-year grant on the development of our resource website. We developed this, it was through a grant from Employment and Social Development Canada, and we developed this because people were using Google to find, and there's so much marketing, keyword finessing. So we've already developed this. It's 600 pages. It's available in English and French. It's overseen by a scientific advisory committee. Every page of that site has been reviewed by a clinician or a researcher. So I guess it's why reinvent the wheel. Why we're getting over 16,000 visitors a month. So it's already there. We want this to be something that's adopted nationally.
No, and I appreciate it. I have very little time.
Yeah.
So you've talked about how many are treated for overdoses, but not necessarily for their brain injury. If someone has a brain injury and an addiction issue, what is the best course of treatment?
It's programs that are built to support both. So a program that is built to treat their addiction, but is in a format that's accessible to someone with memory impairment, with cognitive processing challenges, that is customized to their needs. And is done in the community setting so that this person doesn't have to leave the supports that they have. And it has to be long-term. It's not just a few weeks, that this needs to be something that they're supported. And perhaps, there's brain injury associations that are ready to step up. They need better funding. They need more support, but they're ready to step up to fill this gap.
So given your experience, would giving large quantities of opioids to people that have both a brain injury and an addiction issue be a good idea?
As a form of treatment?
Yes.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not I don't feel comfortable answering that. I'm not a physician, so I don't.
No, I'm curious if you were aware of what the research were to say on this. You guys have compiled 600 pages worth of research.
If I could just add, this is such an important issue for so many of our constituents and communities. I think that's why I'd like to draw your attention to Section H and I, which specifically make reference to the mental health crisis and addictions. We identified those as key components of this national strategy, given how important they are and how important the intersection is with brain injuries.
I appreciate that. And so my next question is, brain injuries are hard to diagnose for many people at the best of times, and they're really difficult to diagnose if you don't have words. So for the little kids, how can a parent spot a brain injury, especially in children that perhaps don't have the ability to share because they don't have their speech yet?
No, that's a good question. It's so disruptive sleep, anything that's out of their typical behavior. So disruptive sleep, irritable, not eating. There's more serious, the vomiting, and but anything that is atypical of their normal behavior. More severe brain injuries you are able to see on medical imaging, but concussion is, we don't have a diagnostic test at the moment to be able to diagnose concussion through medical imaging, but so it is symptom-based. So it's up to the parents to see, and we need wide-scale education campaigns to get that information into the hands of parents so that they know what to look for.
Okay, so really quickly, what should a parent look for?
Abnormal behavior, anything. So if they've fallen, so crying, irrationally crying, not eating, a change in their normal behavior. And the problem with concussion and brain injury is you've met one person with a brain injury, you've met one person. So there's, if there's a suspected brain injury, then visit your physician. But we need to get that information into people's hands more widely so that they know to look out for this.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Thank you, Ms. Goodrich. Next, Ms. Sidhu, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McGregor and Ms. McDonald being here with us, and thank you the work you are doing for the community. My first questions to Ms. McDonald. I'm from Peel Region. Peel Region, there's over 3,000 emergency room visit and hospitalization for neurotrauma every year. What are the most effective way to bring those numbers down and prevent brain injuries before they happen? You talked about the early intervention.
Yeah, so wide-scale prevention. Not every brain injury can be prevented. So those that we can prevent, let's prevent. Sports injuries, we need really stringent concussion protocols. We have those, but we need to make sure that they're in the hands of everyone. But mitigating the brain injuries that we can, as I said, there's not car accidents, are a huge contributor. And over the lifespan, so in children, one of the MPs mentioned earlier, child abuse, sports injuries. For youth, it's also sports injuries. Adults, it's car accidents. Seniors are the highest incidence of concussion at the moment, and that's going to get worse as we have this aging population. So fall prevention strategies and when a senior comes in with a hip or they've had a stroke, looking for that brain injury, because that's not always noticed in favor of the hip, the broken hip. And they often have poorer health outcomes. So we need to prevent the brain injuries that we can, and then effectively treat over the long term the brain injuries that do happen, so that people do have better health outcomes and are able to live well after their brain injury.
Thank you. And my second question is to Ms. McDonald. I know in 2018, Ontario government passed Rowan's Law to improve concussion safety in sports. What do we know about the effectiveness so far, and what lessons that we learn from it, and then we can implement on that side?
Yeah, that's been an incredible program, and unfortunately, we had to lose Rowan to get to that point. So now all sports teams, my son plays hockey, and we have to do the Rowan's Law concussion course so it's put some formality into youth sports. Coaches have to follow it. These guys, a program like this, maybe it's not Rowan's Law, but something like this should be adopted in every province to ensure that all of those touch points, teachers, coaches, parents, are familiar with the signs and symptoms, because we know we can't rely on youth. We also need to follow return to learn, return to play, but we also need to follow return to life. Sports is very important when you're in high school, but when you're 27 and living with the effects of multiple concussions, maybe that sport you were playing in high school wasn't as important. So we need to make sure that we're prioritizing brain health rather than the sport, and make it okay for kids to walk away from the sport they love and still feel okay about that. But Rowan's Law has done an exponential job of creating this awareness within this community and these various stakeholders, and we need more of that across Canada.
Thank you. Next questions to Mr. McGregor. I know data is very, very important, and as Ms. McDonald said, we need comprehensive data. So I know you're working with the brain injury organization. You must talk to other organizations too. So how you're getting the comprehensive data, so then the best policy you can make it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because, of course, good data is so important to back up all of our policy decisions at whatever level of government you're at. And I think, as Michelle has alluded to it, but also other witnesses, in so many areas there is a lack of clear data, and it may not even be on the same level depending, or quality, depending on what region you're obtaining it from. So I think that's one of the centerpieces of this national strategy, is creating those guidelines in place in a national strategy that allows for that good data collection, so that all of our researchers, so all of the people who are involved in this field, so the people living with a brain injury and their immediate support networks are getting good policy that's based on the best available evidence. So when we crafted this bill, I think data was top of mind for us, and that's why you see reference to it in a lot of sections in the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, do you have more time?
You have about 15 seconds. Say thank you for coming.
I will pass. Yeah. Thank you for working on that bill.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And today's World Mental Day, World Mental Health Day. So I think it's a good thing we're all coming together on your bill.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Monsieur Thériault pour 2 minutes et demie.
Monsieur Thériault for 2.5 minutes. It's my turn? Yes. 2.5 minutes? That's unfortunate. It's so short. My question is for Ms. McDonald, who has been very clear so far. In the bill, we talk about collaboration with Brain Injury Canada and being able to publish facts. How will you do this?
Sorry.
Quelle serait votre politique?
What would be your policy, for example? Where will you be looking to gather information from? Why you and not Health Canada? I'm not a defender of Health Canada, of course, who has websites that are a little awkward sometimes, but how would you go about it? How will you stay relevant and have that good information? Do you already have a strategy?
Well, we work with, we are members of the Canadian Traumatic Brain Injury Research Consortium, the Canadian Concussion Network. We work with the Brain Injury Associations. Everything we do is evidence-based. So we take that and we translate that to the people that need it. And that's part of what research has to happen. We can do all this phenomenal research, but if it's not getting into the hands of people that need it, or if it's not being translated into programs, then we have a problem. So what we do is we work with stakeholders across Canada, other nonprofits. We want to work with the provincial, territorial, and federal government to ensure that everything that needs to be pushed to the brain injury audience is done so. We work with the clinical, the research, the allied health, physiotherapists, occupational therapy, speech language.
Mais vous comprenez que
When Health Canada or officials call officials from another level of government, there's already a chain of events that is well organized. And so, as an organization, would you see yourself calling a health minister from a different province or calling with their speaking to their department and asking for information that they might share with you in creating your strategy to stay relevant and to respect your mandate in this bill? How would you go about it?
It's time to pose the question.
This has to be developed with all of those stakeholders. So this has to be developed with provincial, territorial, Indigenous leaders. We're working with Public Health Agency of Canada to get better numbers to tie incidents to prevalence. So what's happening to people with brain injury. That's also why brain injury needs to be designated a chronic condition so that we have that data over the long term to help to create those decisions. So this framework needs to be, there are so many people that need, stakeholders that need to be involved to develop it, to make sure that it is relevant to the different communities in Canada, because lots of areas, Maritimes and Atlantic Canada and the North, don't have a lot of services.
Thank you.
And so we need to make sure that we're bridging that.
Thank you. Mr. Julian, please, for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on getting a unanimous vote in the House, Mr. McGregor, to bring it here to the Health Committee. I have two questions for you. First off, as you see the bill moving forward, what are your concerns? What are you thinking about? What keeps you up at night? And secondly, do you have any final messages to the Health Committee before we consider the bill?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Julian. I think I'd probably say that I have two concerns. I mean, I know this bill is in the committee's hands, but I hope that when this committee goes through the clause-by-clause analysis of this bill, please understand that this bill was crafted very carefully and in consultation with a lot of people, and I truly hope that the committee honors the spirit and intent of all of the items that are listed in this strategy. They have had a tremendous amount of support, and just please know that the brain injury community is watching, and they are, for the first time in a long time, filled with some hope because an issue that is so personally important to them is finally getting the attention it deserves. Second, I think I have a concern, as do many members of Parliament who have private members' bills in the mix right now, with the standoff that we have in the House of Commons. And I hope that we can find some way to break that logjam, because there are good Conservative private members' bills, there are good Liberal private members' bills, Bloc Québécois and NDP, and I think that a lot of Canadians would like to see the business of the House continue so that those bills can get their due. And sorry, if you can repeat your final question, was it just a final message?
Message to the committee.
Yeah. I think I'll end with this, committee members. You have to have a lot of patience in this business in politics, and I think that's exemplified by my own personal example. This idea first came across my desk all the way back in 2018, and it started off with a simple conversation with a constituent. And through weeks, months, and years of collaboration and work, we've arrived at a moment where we are today. And I think my message to you is just know that a lot of people are watching this work right now. I know through Brain Injury Canada's campaign and through the many people involved in this with personal lived experience. You've all received the emails from right across the country. This is a deeply personal and important issue, and I would just urge the committee to really keep that in mind as you undertake your important work. And I'd like to thank you. You've afforded me and everyone who cares about this issue a lot of grace, and I appreciate everyone's incredible support of the bill as it's progressed to this point.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left before we're going to suspend for the next panel. So we're going to do two short rounds. So 2 minutes for the Conservatives and 2 minutes for the Liberals. Mr. Doherty.
This one more time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. I want to thank Mr. McGregor and Ms. McDonald for bringing this forward. My uncle suffered a traumatic brain injury in the 80s. I saw firsthand how a national level athlete was turned into essentially somebody that struggled not only with the brain injury but also the addiction. Right outside of GF Strong in Vancouver, we know that the dealers prey on those that struggle with brain injuries. We have to do more for this. So I want to say thank you for bringing this forward. I also want to thank Ms. McDonald for your testimony regarding the intimate partner violence. I met two ladies last week in my riding through an organization, and I was shocked to learn that their brain injury came from intimate partner violence, and what they're living with is horrific. And so what you brought forward is critically important. Further, I'd like to offer that the work that I do on mental health and post-traumatic stress disorder, we know that post-traumatic stress disorder comes from traumatic brain injuries, and that is, it's not necessarily a knock or what have you, it's what somebody experiences as well too. And so I would offer Mr. McGregor this, is that perhaps when we're revisiting my Bill C-211 that has passed 2018, the National Framework on post-traumatic stress disorder as it pertains to those who serve our country, our community, our first responders, that there's a way that we can tie this together and perhaps another, I'm not sure if it's an amendment, but really take a look at the brain injury component side of it. And with that, I'll turn it over. I think that the only question that I would like to ask Mr. McGregor is, I know through the bills that I've done that once you've written it and it goes through the processes, there are a lot of things that perhaps come up that you didn't consider at the first writing. Is there anything that you would advise this committee, should you get, like if there's any amendments that you would like to see added into it so that we can get this through and perhaps through drafting or what have you, get it done?
As succinctly as possible, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that would help me in my answering you, Mr. Doherty, and thank you for your words, is if just look at the difference between the first version of this bill in the 43rd Parliament, C-323, and what you have before you today. There is an incredible difference. So I'm not sure if I have any amendments to suggest, because we did an incredible amount of amending to my first version. So I'm very proud of what I've got before me, but of course, this is your job as committee members, is to take all the evidence before you and to make some decisions. But I appreciate your dedication to this cause, so thank you.
Thank you. Last 2 minutes goes to Dr. Pelosi.
Well, I'm going to pull a Doherty here and ask a really long question and give you 2 seconds to answer. You're NDP, you're from BC. There's been much publicized statements by the BC government talking about mandatory treatment under the Mental Health Act. I spoke to one psychiatrist specifically about this in BC, and he said, no, this is a subset of populations, and this is how it pertains to this bill, subset of population which has brain injuries, mental illness, and substance abuse, i.e. concurrence disorders, and they would be using the BC Adult Guardianship Act to require people treatment or to monitor their treatment. Alistair, you did a great job on this bill. Do you know anything about what BC is doing on this? And if not, maybe your colleague, Mr. Julian, can get someone from BC to talk more there about this and its applicability to head brain injury cases.
Yeah, sorry, not direct knowledge, but I mean, all I can really speak to Mr. Pawlowski or Dr. Pawlowski are the provisions that are contained in this bill. And I think what's important to remember is that, you know, this is a federal piece of legislation, but it spells out very clearly that there's going to be an expectation of collaboration between the federal Minister of Health and his or her provincial counterparts. So I know that there's a lot of provincial jurisdiction that we have to always be concerned with, especially when we're dealing with health policy. But I still believe that this federal bill works in a collaborative measure and it still respects provincial jurisdiction. I'm just trying to treat this issue with the national urgency that I think it deserves.
Thank you both, and thank you for being with us. This actually concludes the verbal testimony that we are going to hear on this bill. So the next stage for us will be clause by clause, which will happen on October 24th. And so members will be aware that there's a 48-hour cutoff for any proposed amendments. So get your amendments in by the 22nd at noon. Thank you so much to Brain Injury Canada and to the sponsor of the bill, Mr. McGregor, for being with us today. We're going to suspend while we get ready for the next panel. And yeah, Mr. Julian, yes?
Just because of the unanimous nature of the bill being referred to our committee, would there be an appetite from committee members to adopt by unanimous consent the adoption of the bill without amendment on division? No. Okay.
I don't.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I guess there's two problems, raising a motion on a point of order and the fact that there is no consent. So, no, we're out of luck. We're suspended. Thank you. I call the meeting back to order. Pursuant to order of reference of May 29th, 2024, the committee will now start its study Pursuant to order of reference of May 29th, 2024, the committee will start its study of Bill C-368, an act to amend the Food and Drugs Act, Natural Health Products. I'd like to welcome the sponsor of the bill, Mr. Blaine Calkins, Member of Parliament for Red Deer Lacombe. And I don't think we have any other formalities, Mr. Calkins, except to give you the floor for the next 5 minutes to introduce your bill. Welcome to the committee and congratulations on getting your bill to this stage. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me here to discuss my private member's bill C-368, which was passed at second reading on May 29th. C-368 is by design a bill that is meant to undo the changes made to the definition of natural health products in Bill C-47, a budget implementation act passed by the Liberals and the NDP. The omnibus bill brings natural health products under the legislative and regulatory rubrics of Vanessa's Law, a bill that was intended to only affect therapeutic chemical drugs. The Liberal government, supported by the NDP, snuck these changes in without consulting the industry, shrouding their actions under the cover of a budget bill, hoping no one would notice. But Canadians did notice. Over 80% of Canadians rely on products such as protein powders, vitamins, probiotics, electrolytes, and the list goes on, every day in their daily lives. They would like to have their say on this bill, and C-368 is finally that opportunity for them to have that say. The changes introduced in Bill C-47 are unacceptable and will lead to irreparable harm to the natural health product industry and the 32 million consumers in Canada. 80% of Canadians use natural health products. Businesses will close, innovation will be stifled, investment will dry up, Canadian products will disappear from shelves, made in Canada choice will be replaced with unregulated foreign mail orders, and we are talking about a $5.5 billion industry that generates over $200 million in GST. It employs 54,000 people directly from manufacturing to retail, and this does not even include the members working indirectly in the industry's jobs such as packaging, shipping, and so on. I believe that Canadians have the right to make the health choices that are best for themselves and their families. I also believe that businesses should not shoulder the heavy cost of an ever-growing bureaucratic empire. We know that existing regulations on health supplements already keep Canadians safe. This additional red tape is about giving more power to Ottawa, not protecting Canadians, and that's why I've introduced my bill, C-368, which will amend the Food and Drugs Act and take us back to the laws and regulations prior to C-47. That it aims to safeguard the rights of Canadian consumers and ensure the availability of safe and beneficial natural health products that Canadians rely on. By supporting this legislation, you will be pushing back against governmental overreach and protecting the rights of entrepreneurs and consumers in the health product market. Together, we can ensure that Canadian businesses are competitive and that Canadians' access to safe supplements is protected. But before we go to the round of questionings, I would like to just refute some claims that some of the detractors of my bill have stated. The first is that the industry is not a safe one. If anything, our existing regulatory system is one of the best in the world. I would like to quote the IADSA, the IADSA, the Global Association for the Food Supplement Sector, in a letter they submitted to this committee. Up to now, and I quote, Canada has been a world leader in the regulation of dietary supplements. We fear that the proposed changes to Canada's regulatory framework for natural health products risk creating an environment that could stifle the industry and limit Canadians' access to high-quality supplements. The IADSA has always promoted the Canadian model as the global reference point for governments across the world who are creating or redeveloping their regulatory systems. This Canadian model is recognized as providing consumers access to products which are safe and beneficial while fostering innovation and supporting investment in the sector. And they're not talking about the Bill C-47 changes, they're talking about before Bill C-47. So next, Health Canada has paraded out an Auditor General's report that claims that hundreds have become sick from natural health products. Notwithstanding the fact that therapeutic drugs harm a magnitude more people than natural health products, this statistic is simply not true. Deloitte conducted an audit of the industry that shows that, in fact, very few people have had adverse effects from natural health products, and there's a general theme to be observed here. Health Canada makes claims they cannot support, provides no documentation to support their claims, and are quickly debunked with any real data. Another line of attack on my bill was the changes to the Food and Drug Act were necessary to stop the sale of nicotine pouches. This is simply not true. Nicotine pouches should never have been categorized categorized as a natural health product, nor did Health Canada need to give them a natural health product number. The Minister of Health already has the powers he needs to fix these issues, including issuing a stop order, so why the need for these ever greater powers? The last claim is that self-funding model is needed to pay for the expanded bureaucracy. The Directorate at Health Canada is now $50 million. This industry generates over $200 million in GST alone. One could just assume then that the self-funding model is nothing more than a tax grab. If I am to leave you with one salient point, it's that the Minister has given himself unchecked power with C-47 and C-69 to deem any product non-compliant, even if the scientific evidence does not support that claim. Couple this with the fact that under Vanessa's law, non-compliance can result in $5 million daily fines. Natural health products, small and medium enterprises are understandably feeling the chill of a government with unchecked power. This once stable, safe, and renowned industry is being destroyed. As MPs, it is our duty to fix the mess that C-47 has created, and I urge all of you to pass my bill, go through the study, pass my bill unamended, and send it back to the House of Commons as quickly as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. We'll begin rounds of questions with Dr. Ellis for 6 minutes.
Well, thanks very much, Chair, and thank you to you, Mr. Calkins. Obviously, you came very well prepared, and I think that that is the testimony that we heard back during the original debate around Bill C-47. We heard that exact testimony. You know, if I might, I think, and I would like to hope that all of the members of the committee have had the opportunity to read this report by Deloitte, and it's a telltale report, of course, underlying very clearly that they were unable to find any deaths due to natural health products. And in my reading of this, perhaps 32 hospitalizations in 3 years due to natural health products. So their safety record, as you outlined very clearly, Mr. Calkins, is quite excellent. That being said, you know, one of the things that we all received as members of Parliament is considerable amount of correspondence from Canadians. Maybe you could talk a bit about that, and the other important part, I think, is related to how many female entrepreneurs are actually in the natural health product industry and how important that is to their success as individuals.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. Look, the Deloitte report, I think, debunks many of the claims that have been made. Look, natural health products are proven to be safe and effective. You don't have to go very far to find somebody who's concerned about this. Every single one of us, colleagues, has received, I would imagine, countless numbers of cards from the various different industry associations that are urging, like I said, the 80% of Canadians who rely and use natural health products, encouraging us to do our job, which is actually to serve their interests and not serve the interests of a bureaucracy that, frankly, should have the resources and does have the resources it would need. And it's just a matter of the government making it a priority and finding out whether or not they're even effectively managed within their own department to keep this industry well regulated and moving forward. So, yeah, Mr. Ellis, look, you're hard pressed to find anybody. I've been a member of Parliament for 19 years. I can count on zero fingers how many letters I've got from people saying we need more protection from natural health products. But I can tell you, it's going to take a whole lot of fingers to count the number of Canadians who are very, very concerned right now about this new regulatory regime that's coming in, the self-care framework that Health Canada wants to implement, directly opposing all of the advice that parliaments have been given, including the report from back in 1998, that natural health products are more closely aligned and should be treated like food, not as therapeutic drugs. And I would just leave that with the committee. Do what the Canadians who have wrote you have asked you to do, and support the bill.
Thanks very much, Mr. Calkins. And if I could just kind of direct back to the number of female entrepreneurs.
Oh, yes, those female entrepreneurs, yeah. So, look, the 54,000 Canadians work directly in the industry. You know, there's been no gender-based analysis on this. Over 80% of the consumers of natural health products are women. 90% of practitioners in the industry are women. Well over 50% of the micro-businesses are female-owned, and 84% of direct sellers are women. But here's the part that's actually particularly obnoxious about the way this has all happened. C-47 and C-69 has given the Minister of Health the power to make direct orders when the minister has the ability to make a direct order, they don't have to go through the gazetting process. When you don't go through the gazetting process, you actually don't have to do the gender-based analysis that the government had set up when they came into office in 2015. So no gender-based analysis has been done on this particular issue of changing natural health products under the rubrics of Vanessa's law, and I think that's particularly galling when this government claims to be a feminist government. It's going to disproportionately affect women businesses, women consumers, mothers who want to look after the health of their families and their children. People who are looking after their own health should have as much choice and options available to them. And the community's frustrated. Mr. Ellis.
Thanks very much, Mr. Calkins. You know, it's interesting when you look at some of the research done, and this is perhaps older statistics, but, 3,300 seniors alone died due to prescription pharmaceuticals, and millions are hospitalized and harmed every year. Certainly if we look at those numbers in comparison to natural health products, as I mentioned, 32 people from all walks of life and all age ranges may have been harmed due to natural health products in 3 years, which would mean, we're about 10 a year if we want to do the math, as opposed to seniors, only at least 3,300 died due to pharmaceuticals. Do you think that means then the government should make an attack on the pharmaceutical industry and make the restrictions there more stringent? Is their approach misguided?
I find it odd that we want to do to natural health products the same type of regulatory approval process that the therapeutic drug process undergoes right now, that does result directly in the deaths of over 3,000 seniors every year in Canada. So, look, this is, like I said in my opening remarks, natural health products, our food should be closely aligned with food. They should be, and if you talk to the industry associations and everyday Canadians who use these products, they will tell you the same thing, that natural health products.
I don't know. You phone them.
Well, you can phone me later if you want, Marcus.
Oh, sorry.
But to go back to the answer, Mr. Ellis, there's no reason for this to happen. None of the parliamentary reports, nothing that the Parliament's ever done has suggested they do this. And the government has 15 years after a previous government fell into the same trap. They're doing the same thing all over again. But the problem is this time there's no course correction other than through my private member's bill.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. Dr. Ellis. Next, Dr. Hanley, please, for 6 minutes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Calkins, for appearing today, and I salute your accomplishment in getting this bill to committee, and I'm hoping we can use this committee to really talk about what this bill does and does not do. And I'm thinking of a case report I read in the Canadian Medical Association Journal last year describing a 39-year-old woman presenting with severe anemia, abdominal pain, a cluster of other symptoms, and was actually found to have lead poisoning from taking an Ayurvedic medication. And the article says of 15 types of pills seized at the practitioner's clinic where these medications were obtained, there were high levels of arsenic, mercury, or lead in 14 of the samples. Also, 3 pills contained prescription medications, including diclofenac, dexamethasone, progesterone, norgestrel, and cetirizine. So I have to say, when I read cases like this, that I'm greatly concerned by this bill and its intent. And the correspondence, conversations, and briefs that I've received on not so much from industry, but from health and healthcare experts. Statistically, Health Canada received reports of over 8,000 suspected harmful reactions to natural health products. 5,000 were serious from 2004 until 2021. And between 2021 and 2023, out of 1,019 reports of harmful reactions, 772 were serious enough that those Canadians had life-threatening reactions and or were hospitalized. And you may call it overreach, but I would call it proper oversight and protecting Canadians, which I think is one of the key roles of Health Canada and of government. And additionally, I think it's important for anyone observing to note that this bill does not have any influence on some of the concerns that I have been hearing about national health products, such as the proposed policies from Health Canada on cost recovery or improved labeling requirements. And that has been a primary point of contention and focus of stakeholder scrutiny through campaigns. So I just want to reflect that what this bill would do, if passed, would be to roll back the ability for Health Canada to subject natural health products to recalls. And also just want to point out that before many, at least some of your colleagues, when they realized that natural health products lacked the regulatory protection of recalls that other products, such as food and pharmaceuticals, do have, testimony such as this from Mr. Lawrence, do you not find this disturbing? And are there any products out there right now that are supposed to be recalled and are not? Another point of testimony, how do we make sure Canadians are confident in the products they're buying when there are so many holes, gaps, or issues, whether they be contaminated products, expired products, or not even knowing where these products are manufactured or where they're coming from Mr. Patzer? So your stance is contradicting others within your party, although perhaps this is another example of somewhat whimsical policy according to which way political winds are blowing. And I also wanted to point out that Sean Buckley of the Natural Health Products Protection Association at the Government Operations Committee testified, I am familiar with this bill. I wrote the first draft for MP Blaine Calkins. So sounds like with this bill that you're the spokesperson for the natural health products industry. Would that be accurate, Mr. Calkins?
No, it wouldn't be accurate at all, Mr. Hanley. Mr. Buckley has his own opinions about things. I had a bill drafted by the legislative drafters here. I asked Mr. Buckley if he would send me what he thought the bill should be. When he sent me his bill, it looked virtually identical to what the legislative drafters here at the House of Commons presented to me. So to suggest that I work for Mr. Buckley would be not only wrong. As a matter of fact, the first contact I had with Mr. Buckley was when I just asked him to send me what he thought the bill should be. And that's when I compared, because he has experience as a legislative drafter previously in his career. So, but you'll have plenty of time to, I believe, cross-examine Mr. Hanley. Look, Mr. Buckley. Look, Health Canada already has more powers than the ability to recall. The industry is asked many times to have product recalls. I'm not aware of anybody in the industry that's refused a voluntary recall, but let's review the powers that Health Canada currently or had before Bill C-47. They have the ability to stop a sale. That would stop the problem with the Ayurvedic medicine that you're talking about. They have border power for personal use imports. They have the ability to seize any product that they want. They can revoke a site license for any of the sites that would have had Ayurvedic medicine that was being sent out. That includes manufacturers, packages and labels, and importers. They can mandate a label change anytime they want and add any warnings they want to products. They can inspect any site license. They can inspect any product. They approved every natural product number that's out there, and they can revoke a natural product number.
Mr. Calkins, I only have a minute left, so I'll
So
if it's
Dr.
not
Hanley,
being done, then
you asked a very lengthy question.
Yeah.
You have another 45 seconds.
The mandatory
Mr. Calkins.
recall, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Leslie, is a red herring. The existing protocols are already in place. The real question you should be asking your minister is why isn't the staff in his ministry actually using the powers that they have to bring non-compliance into compliance?
Thank you. And the last 30 seconds, I just want to point out the concerns of many who have written to me or who have written briefs to this committee. Canadian Medical Association, Dr. Joss Reimer, who I actually just met with yesterday. Canadians should be able to make decisions about their health care, including having access to natural products that are safe and live up to any claims they have regarding health benefits. She goes on to say, this is why we recommend leaving natural health products under the definition of therapeutic products. The alternative is far too risky.
Brief answer, if you could, please, Mr. Calkins.
Look, the International Association says that Canada, prior to Bill C-47, was the gold standard that the rest of the world should be achieving. Why would anybody at this table want to undermine that, Mr. Hanley?
Thank you. Monsieur Thériault, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci.
Mr. Thériault for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Calkins, for your presentation. Thank you for the bill. I've been here for 9 years. I think I'm recognized for my intellectual integrity, and I would like to share with you when we studied this and we brought in the chief researcher, Mr. Davies agreed with us on the serious criticism that we were making with changes to natural health products. I say this because you started by saying that the Liberals and the NDP voted for C47. And I'm not doing this for my colleague next to me, but when we're talking about a private member's bill, we should try to bring everyone together. And what was unfortunate with C47 was that it was hidden in an omnibus bill. There were provisions hidden in such a bill. Governments often do this. You've been in Parliament for 19 years, so I'm sure that you've seen Conservatives do this as well. I say this because it's important to note that on this side of the table, we had constructive criticism, and we shared a point of view on how the chief researcher was not able to answer our questions on the pharmaceuticals and natural health products. That said, I have a concern. I hope that you will be open to amendments, because nicotine, for me, is not a natural health product. It's a drug. It's a serious drug. And I was wondering if you would be open for us to exclude all nicotine-based products from the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Theriault, for your question. Look, my preference would be that the bill passes as expeditiously as possible, unamended. I would think that if you have a conversation with the industry that represents natural health products, the Health Food Association, Natural Health Products Protection Association, and so on, I can't speak for them, but I would imagine you would hear them say that nicotine is not part of their concern. What appears to have happened is, because nicotine comes from a natural source, it happens to fall under, and because the claim is it is a smoking cessation product, it falls into the natural health. Yeah. Well, it accidentally ended up here is my point. And I don't know why nicotine would be here when it could be more properly regulated under the same legislation that looks after tobacco and so on. So my recommendation would be to pass this bill in its current form and find a solution elsewhere to deal with nicotine or something to that effect. So but the reality is, Mr. Theriault, the bill was only in my care and control up until I tabled it in the House of Commons. It is now the property of the House of Commons and this committee. But I would recommend that we find a different way to do it. I'm not suggesting that your concerns are invalid, but I would suggest that there's other places and other powers that the minister has, and that bogging down the progress of Bill C-368 simply for something like nicotine pouches, stopping a $5.5 billion industry for nicotine pouches, I think might be the wrong approach. There's a better way I think there's a better way or other way to do it.
Bon. Alors, je comprends que vous n'êtes pas ouvert à un amendement.
I understand that you're not open to an amendment.
I'm not excited about an amendment, but it's up to you guys to decide if it gets amended. I'm just stating my preference.
D'accord. Ben, en fait, c'est clair qu'on va...
It's clear that I will be making that amendment because it's an issue with the bill. There is lobbying against the bill, and we will hear that the bill doesn't make sense because nicotine products like Xanax will be sold without any restrictions, because we won't be able to recall products. How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair? 45 seconds. All right. I would also like to know what your understanding is of recalls. Because when we want consensus on a bill and we want it to be adopted, we want to see what can bring people together. I believe that the industry is very careful with the products on the market, but I don't think that they have concerns regarding recalls with a problematic industry. And I think that we should be open to the idea that recalls be more than on a voluntary basis. That's my comment because I think I'm out of time, Mr. Chair, but I will come back to this later. Thank you, Mr. Theriault.
Next, Mr. Julian for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I congratulate you, Mr. Calkins. You have a long experience in the House, almost 20 years, I believe. Yes, yeah. And the fact that you've brought the bill this far is an exception in terms of private members' bills, and you're obviously responding to a very, very clear need. There is no doubt that the issue of natural health products is something that bears much closer examination. That is why I voted for the bill, and the NDP voted for the bill to get it to committee so that we can do this more extensive examination. You didn't mention in your introduction, but I think it's fair enough to reference that this is the third time that we've had bills that have an impact or a potential impact on natural health products. I'm referencing, of course, since we've been in the House of Commons, Bill C-51 that was brought forward by the Harper government. It was, in the end, not adopted, and then Bill C-17, Vanessa's law. Both under the Harper government, we now have the most recent legislation that has been brought forward. And I think your very eloquent reference to the importance of the industry and the importance of natural health products to preface your initial statement, I think was absolutely valid. We've been going around in circles on this, and the industry obviously needs some assurance that what will be put into place is something that will benefit the industry and benefit the consumers. And I count myself as one of the consumers of natural health products. In fact, I take magnesium because my doctor prescribed it. It makes a difference on the long hauls that we take and that I will be taking shortly to go back to BC. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So this is important. We've had a number of different iterations of the bills. And my first question to you is how do we get the balance right to ensure that we are actually benefiting the industry, making sure that consumers have access to important natural health products, but to ensure as well that there is some oversight?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thank you, Mr. Julian, for your question. You're exactly right. So here's how it played out. Bill C-51 was brought forward. I don't think the industry responded well to Bill C-51 back when that happened. So the right thing to do when Parliament or a government in the House of Commons makes a mistake is to step back, say, what have we done? Consult with the industry, consult with the stakeholders, consult with people who are going to be affected by this. Mr. Julian, if the claim that 80% of Canadians, and you asked me a question during the debate on C-368, whether or not I take these products, you and I are part of the 80% of Canadians who take them. As a matter of fact, you and I both take magnesium, which is very understandable considering the lifestyles and the work demands that we have. But that's how you do it. You do it by engaging. And what's missing in this particular case is the fact that the government did make a misstep with C-47. And the misstep is that they didn't consult with the industry, that it was tucked into a Budget Implementation Act. It passed basically with no discussion. I don't recall anybody in the debate on the C-47 even raising the issue because it was just 4 little lines in this great big omnibus piece of legislation until people figured out what was actually going on with the implementation of the self-care framework. And then the industry came forward and asked the government, similar to what they did with C-51 and C-17, to take a step back, consult the industry before moving forward. And that's how you do things in a constructive way. What I've seen happen here is the government has not only dug in on C-47, but they've doubled down on it in Bill C-63, or is it C-16? I can't remember which one it is, the next Budget Implementation Act, giving the power to Health Canada and to the minister to make immense changes to the industry. And to my knowledge, to this day, the industry has not been consulted by the minister who's been responsible for making those last two changes. How can you build goodwill and get to a place where everybody is happy, where Canadian consumers are happy, where the industry is happy, and where the government can provide adequate oversight? Because nobody's arguing that there should be no oversight. We're simply saying, and the industry is saying, and Canadians are saying, there was not a real big problem with the way things were. And if there is a few small flies, we don't need to swat them with a sledgehammer, and that seems to be what's happening. So my recommendation would be passing C-368, taking it back, and then if the government does have some legitimate problems, start all over again, start working with the industry on a broader level, do consultations before making this kind of a misstep again, because we've riled up thousands, millions of Canadians with this, has been evidenced by the cards that we've received, and rightly so, Mr. Julian. And our job as members of Parliament is to work on behalf of Canadians, not to work on behalf of the government.
Thank you for that response. Now, Mr. Thériault asked you about nicotine-based products, and you've obviously heard the concerns that have been raised to this committee and more broadly about nicotine-based products. You have said this is now given to committee to work on, and we do acknowledge that you're saying you'd prefer no amendments, but you do understand why we might be considering amendments of that nature.
Well,
briefly, please, Mr.
Yeah,
Hawkins.
so I'm sure there's going to be some people come forward and propose that this is the place to do it. But what happens, Mr. Julian, is if we make amendments now to do a carve-out for something like nicotine pouches, which I don't want to get into the pros and cons of nicotine pouches, but then we set an entrenchment of the changes that have been made in Bill C-47 into law. And I think what we really should do is just pass the bill, go back to the drawing board, and have a conversation with the industry, let the industry decide, or at least have a say in the matter of which way it wants to go in the fork in the road. Because I can't, like I said, I don't speak. You'll have them as witnesses. For the industry will come and tell you. I don't think they're going to defend nicotine pouches per se. And I think maybe if we went back to the drawing board by passing the bill and then going in a direction where the natural health products that are used for the health and well-being of Canadians can be separated from nicotine products. And that's my recommendation. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Mr. Doherty, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you to my colleague for bringing this bill forward. Prior to C-47, were there mechanisms in place to deal with the bad actors in the industry?
Yeah, of course. Like I said, in a response to a question from Mr. Hanley, Health Canada, as a matter of fact, if you take a look at the Auditor General's report, sorry, translators, if you take a look at the Auditor General's report, they basically said that the Health Canada wasn't using the powers that they already had. So I guess the response from Health Canada is, well, if we're not using the powers we already have, I guess we need more powers. Well, that's not a reasonable response. They need to use the powers that they already had. They have the ability to stop a sale. They can immediately say to somebody, they can go out to the retailers, to the distributors, to the manufacturers saying, stop sale. They have powers at the border for personal use imports. They have the ability to seize products anywhere along in the supply chain. They can revoke a site license for a manufacturer. They can revoke a site license for anybody involved in packaging and labeling. They can revoke a site license for an importer. They can mandate a label change at any time they want, add warnings, add clarification, for example. They have the ability to inspect anybody that has a site license anytime they want. They can do an inspection on any product. They can go to the store, buy the products that they want, send them to the lab. They can do any of these things that they want. They are responsible for approving natural product numbers. They've created the entire mechanism in place to do that, and they can revoke a natural product number if somebody's out of line. They have the ability to issue recall notices. The recalls are, I believe, at this particular point, voluntary. But look, ask the industry. I don't know of anybody that has not actually complied with a voluntary recall. So I don't know what problem is we're trying to fix here, other than Health Canada I think has got a different motive, an ulterior motive on this, and they're just using this, perhaps nicotine pouches, as an opportunity to justify the massive cash grab and power grab that they want. And I'm not afraid, Mr. Doherty, when I walk into a natural product store, like an organic grocery store, that sells organic foods, health foods, and natural health products are on that shelf. I'm not afraid of anything that's on that store shelf, and I don't think any other Canadian actually is as well. And we should be encouraging consumer choice and allowing consumers to make the choices that are best for them.
Thank you for that. When C47 was before this committee, the Chief Medical Advisor of Health Canada used C47, used the case of 19-month-old Ezekiel Stepan as a prime example as to why C47 was needed. Are you familiar with that case at all? So Ezekiel Stepan was a young boy, 19 months old. The parents who fell sick, who fell ill, and the parents treated their son with natural health products. And I'm not sure what they treated, what exactly it was that they used with. And so they were, when he died, ultimately Ezekiel died.
Garlic and hot peppers.
Garlic and hot peppers. And so this young couple were charged in Alberta, in Lethbridge, Alberta, in the death of their son because they failed to do what was right. They used natural health products. The reason why I'm bringing this up is the young boy did not die from the use of natural health products. He died because he had viral meningitis, and he died from lack of oxygen. But the Chief Medical Advisor stated this case as a prime example as to why C47 was so needed. Despite multiple attempts by myself to give her the opportunity, I was very familiar with this case, to correct the record, she refused to do so. Why do you think, Mr. Speaker, again, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Calkins, why do you feel that the Chief Medical Advisor would have done that?
Look, first of all, it's a very tragic story, but I think what you would find, Mr. Doherty, and I'll just speak in general terms here, is that when push comes to shove, I think Health Canada has been not very forthcoming with the actual data and facts that they should be publishing to make their case. And if you take a look at the Deloitte audit, I think is very, very clear about some of the deaths that Health Canada has purported to use, and has debunked most of the claims that Health Canada floats out there without actually providing what I would consider to be documented evidence to support their claims. So what the motives are of a particular individual, I'll leave that to the discretion of everybody here. But I don't, like I said, I haven't seen anything from Health Canada that would convince me that Bill C-47 is justified.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. Mr. Nackby, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and welcome, Mr. Calkins. Let me just start by saying that I support natural health products. I've spoken to many constituents who expect that there are rules and regulations in place that ensures that natural health products are safe. And the product they're buying, like any other product they buy, whether it's food or other medications, that there's a regulatory scheme in place that ensures that Canadians with products are safe. So my concern with this bill is that it undermines the safety of these products. It is clear to me that if your bill were adopted, it would increase the risk of unsafe products remaining on the market. That would mean that Canadians would be left in the dark without warning labels or the information available for them to make an informed decision on the health of themselves and their families. And let me give you an example. In September 2021, Health Canada found unsafe levels of methanol in a hand sanitizer. Methanol is poisonous to humans. Despite Health Canada's request for a recall, the company refused to comply and kept the product available for sale for months. Do you think this is acceptable? How would the government ensure that safety of Canadians if your bill is to be adopted?
Well, Mr. Naqvi, it was the government of Canada that would have issued the license for that product to be on the shelf in the first place. They could have simply ordered a stop sale of that product. That would have put anybody that sold that product immediately into non-compliance, and that would have given Health Canada the powers that they needed. And then the appropriate fines would have began to have been levied against that company would be how I would presume that would happen. But to intimate that without Bill C-47 that the industry is somehow unregulated is, I think, the impression that you're trying to leave people who are watching this committee with that perception, and that's simply not the case at all. There is a very well-defined process that natural health product companies have to go through, and the schedules that they have to follow, the monographs that they have to follow in order to get a product to the market. Some 50,000 products that are currently on the market have natural product numbers, and it is a very, like I said, it is a very well regulated. As a matter of fact, Mr. Naqvi, as I said in my opening remarks, the international organization that watches all of these things said that the pre-C-47 laws and regulations that we had in place made Canada the gold standard. We were attracting and drawing in businesses from around the world coming to Canada in order to have Canada's reputation, the regulatory reputation, attached to their product so that they could distribute it not only within Canada, but around the world.
Okay, but Mr. Calkins.
Right now, Mr. Naqvi, states in the United States of America.
Mr. Calkins, let him pose
Yeah,
the next
it's my
question,
time,
please.
so
Yeah.
thank you for running the clock. I appreciate that you're a seasoned parliamentarian. But here's a scenario. What your bill does is takes away the power of recall from Health Canada. So on one hand, the power exists for Health Canada to let's recall a spoiled head of lettuce, but they will not be able to recall, if your bill is passed into law, a health supplement that has some serious detrimental health conditions. How do you justify that discrepancy?
Well, you're comparing food to a hand sanitizer, as I've already said.
No, I'm talking about any other supplements or the national health products too.
Well,
Point of order, point of order.
Yeah, point of order, Mr. Doherty, go ahead.
Mr. Naqvi asked the question. He should allow our guests at the time
Just having a
to
conversation.
answer the question.
Yeah, I agree, and the question lasted 30 seconds. You've got 30 seconds to answer it. Mr.
Oh,
Calkins,
it's
go
okay.
ahead.
Well, I'll do my best. Look, the reality is more people die from prescription medications and actually from food than from natural health products, according to the data that I've been able to glean from the public sphere. So, Mr. Naqvi, to suggest that natural health products are actually problematic, there is not enough data or research, and Health Canada, I don't think, has been forthright with that information, and they have, as I've listed, massive powers already to stop sale, to issue fines and levies for non-compliance wherever they deem fit, and that was prior to Bill C-47 happening. So,
Okay, so let me just also get this on the record. Your bill doesn't address the topic of cost recovery or labeling changes, yet you consistently point to those issues. The only thing your bill does is to take away government's ability to protect Canadians from products that could cause serious risk to human health. Do you think you are misleading Canadians about what your bill will actually accomplish?
Mr. Naqvi, the ability for Health Canada to
answer my question. What does your bill accomplish?
Mr. Naqvi, please. He's trying to answer your question.
Health
and
Canada has the ability, prior to Bill C-47 passing, to mandate a label change. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, that applies to manufacturers, packages and labelers, and importers. They could revoke the site license of anybody that refuses to put that label change on. Those powers existed prior to Bill C-47. So whoever's told you that Bill C-47 has given Health Canada those powers has not been genuine with you, Mr. Naqvi.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. That's your time, Mr. Naqvi. Suite, Mr. Thériault, pour 2 minutes.
2.5 minutes. Just to add on to the discussion that just happened, for those listening, the matter of why we're here talking about this is because the government was not doing its job, was not doing inspections, did not share the necessary standards. There were some issues, and compared to pharmaceuticals, the adverse effects are lower. But then all of a sudden, we heard, oh, we need to look like people who have control and change the situation, but there is no control. This is an industry that you said is quite rigorous. And if it is, well, and this is for all products, for food, drugs, if there's a recall, well, if the process is vigorous, there will be a recall. There won't be any issues. But for there to be recalls, there needs to be inspections. And we need to share these standards to companies so that they know how to respect these standards. Health Canada was too complacent for years. And I can see across the room people are getting offended. But we need to find commonalities. And with this bill, I would be ready to give the minister recall power. It already exists for food. Why not do it here? But there needs to be a true inspection process implemented. And you can't accuse the industry of issues, the iniquities of certain products, when they were allowed to act and to self-regulate for years. When we say that, and we need to be careful with what we're saying regarding the industry. That's a comment if you want to comment on my comment.
Thank you. I think you'd be, I would encourage you to explore the site licensing regulatory process, because my understanding from touring various manufacturing facilities and so on, as I've learned immensely about this wonderful, wonderful industry, is that the industry itself actually helped Health Canada develop the regulations for what needs to happen in order for a site to be properly set up for safety. And my understanding now is that Health Canada doesn't provide the guidelines back to the very companies to know how they can follow and be in compliance with the Health Canada regulations. So I would really encourage you, my understanding from the industry and the people that I've talked to is they've been more than helpful in trying to help Health Canada come up with best practices and give them guidance and advice on how the industry could be regulated, how sites should be set up, operated, and ran.
Thank you.
And the reward back is that Health Canada now wants
Calkins.
more powers and to take a lot of money away from these companies under the self-care, self-funding framework.
Thank you. Mr. Julian, please, for 2.5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I've been listening very carefully to your testimony, Mr. Calkin, and we've had a number of cases. There are rare cases when there is a product that is harmful to people. Listening to your testimony, what you were saying to us today is that there are a number of alternatives that exist already for Health Canada. What I understand you saying is you can issue a stop sale order. There are fines. There's the possibility of revoking a license. You're basically saying that there are a number of other measures that can be taken by Health Canada now in that rare case when there is something that is harmful to the Canadian public. Is that?
I'm happy to revisit the list with you, but this is my understanding and my interpretation of what Health Canada already has the powers to do. And in talking with industry actors, Health Canada already has the ability to issue a stop sale order, which anybody that doesn't comply with a stop sale would automatically be in non-compliance and subject to the fines prior to C-47. Health Canada has the power at the border to stop the importation of any personal use import. As you know, anybody can go on to, and I don't want to advertise this, but they can go on and order products from around the world, Amazon, whatever the case might be. Health Canada has the ability, if they want to restrict the products coming across the border that don't have the same rigorous standards that the Canadian regulated products already have. They have the ability to seize any product anytime that they want from any of the sites or from any of the stores. They can revoke a site license for a manufacturer, a packager or labeler, or an importer if they're importing or doing some practice that's inappropriate and is causing harm or potential risk to Canadians. They have the ability to mandate a label change and add warnings, do whatever they need to do to get the label to come into compliance with a very well rubric labeling requirements. They have the ability to go to any sites. They go to a manufacturer, a packager, a labeler, or an importer and inspect that site, and the site must comply. They can inspect any product that they want. They can either buy it off the shelf and send it to the lab. They can go to the site itself and collect whatever they need to. Furthermore, I would add, Mr. Julian, that Everyone that I witnessed in the manufacturing side of the equation usually has access to their own labs, or if not, even their own in-house labs, to make sure that what's in the product is what's on the label. Health Canada approves every natural product number for sale, and which means they also have the power to revoke any natural product number. So Health Canada already has broad, sweeping powers. The Auditor General's report said that the issue isn't that Health Canada doesn't have the power, that Health Canada wasn't using the powers appropriately that they already had.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Calkins.
Okay, thank you. Great question.
We have about 5 minutes. We're going to divide it evenly between the Conservatives and the Liberals. So next up for 2.5 minutes is Ms. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you for your leadership on this bill, Mr. Calkins. As a member of Parliament, we often receive different notes and letters, emails, correspondence. I was actually surprised by the amount of correspondence I received so quickly, initially on the change to the legislation and then very quickly on your legislation. And the number of people that would actually stop me in community to tell me that this was such a serious problem that they had very serious concerns about. I've been on this committee for nearly 3 years. I've never seen the gallery full. And here we have a full gallery. And I'm assuming these people aren't just sitting here at 5:30 because they want to. I'm assuming they're here because they're trying to show some support. My question to you is, why is this so important for the choice of Canadians to be able to have natural health products?
Thank you, Ms. Goodrich, for that question. Look, for Canadians that rely on natural health products, and there's lots, you don't have to go very far. You go to any health food store, any natural product store, you will find Canadians buying these products to supplement their health. Like I said, over 80% of the consumers are women who are trying to either look after their own health, look after their family's health. The ability for them to have the choice that they want to take and put some semblance of health care into their own hands is a wonderful thing. The benefits, we're talking that the government brings up a few of these rare cases where something's gone wrong. Has anybody actually done an analysis of what would happen if 70% of the products disappeared from the shelf? Has anybody even asked that question? How much less healthy will Canadians be if 1 in 5 businesses go out of business, for example? So the industry will tell you what the fear is that's out there. Canadians are rightfully afraid that they're going to lose that ability to make those healthcare choices on their own. And the irony of all of this, Ms. Goodrich, is that in the name of safety, the government is going to extend so deep into this that they're going to drive businesses to the United States. There's states right now in the United States that are offering to take Canadian businesses, incentivizing Canadian businesses here, regulated with natural product numbers, regulated by Health Canada, take them to the United States where they don't have the same regulatory framework, and then the Canadians are going to buy those same products. The jobs are going to go there, the investment's going to go there, the lack of regulations in the United States compared to Canada is going to be what they have, and they'll be trying to buy that same product, shipping it in across the border, making Canadians more exposed to risk and have less control over the products that they're putting in their bodies. This is not the approach to take. The health you don't for a couple of cases you don't bring in this kind of law and regulatory oversight to drive the business away. It's going to have the opposite effect of what the government claims it will.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. Final questions for you will be posed by Dr. Pawlowski for the next 2.5 minutes.
Blaine, it really is good to see you, and I vehemently disagree with you. You said, 1, natural health products are basically really safe. 2, you say even with this law, there's adequate protections in place, but you've admitted if we enact your law, we will lose the power to have mandatory recalls. We would also lose the power to require reporting of adverse drug reactions, which is Vanessa's law. And so I think in total, this reduces the protection for Canadians. Now, although many of these products may be safe, as one surgeon friend of mine used to say, what can happen, does happen, will happen. And if you haven't seen something, you haven't seen enough. And I've certainly worked in developing countries where I've seen a lot of people die from traditional medicines. and unfortunately kids. And yeah, you'll say, well, maybe that's Africa, that's not Canada. But in North America, we have ephedra alkaloids between 1997 and 1998. They were used for weight loss, caused hypertension, myocardial infarctions, stroke, seizures, caused 10 deaths, 13 permanent disabilities. Plant alkaloids, pyrrolidicilline, causes liver toxicities, including cirrhosis. Kratom, which was a natural health product used for opioid withdrawal, causes seizures and psychosis. We've already talked about heavy metal poisoning and Ayurvedic medicines. Many case reports, including in Canada, St. John's Wort's had adverse interactions with other drugs, like commonly used drugs like Imitrex, Maxalt, which are used in migraines, can cause serotonin syndrome, which can be deadly. These are not necessarily benign products. A lot of natural products have been the sources of medications like aspirin, antimethicillin, artemisinin, used for treatment of malaria. So a lot of these are drugs, and you're proposing that they be less regulated. I can see how maybe the Conservatives are more interested in supporting businesses, the businesses that produce natural health products, than they are of preventing unwanted adverse effects on Canadians. I'm a little surprised the NDP feels the same. I'll give you, Blaine, an opportunity to respond. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Podlowski. Look, I just find it very rich coming from a government that legalizes crack, meth, and heroin, at the same time wants to crack down on vitamin D and St. John's wort. So, you know, if you want to actually improve the health and well-being of Canadians, I don't know, some 40,000 Canadians have died so far from opioid drug overdoses. Maybe we should look at spending a little bit more time and effort there instead of worrying about a few hundred cases over 3 years of people that might have had an adverse reaction to a natural health product.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins, and thanks to all of you for a very interesting meeting. This is the first of a few meetings on this bill, Mr. Calkins. As you know, after the constituency week, we will be hearing from some others. One housekeeping matter before we adjourn, colleagues. The U.S. delegation that had asked to informally meet with us, we have been able to secure resources to meet with them for 1 hour on October 22nd between 3:30 and 4:40 p.m. So you'll be formally notified of that, but if whoever can make it, it would be nice to have a decent turnout. Is the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting? We're adjourned. Thank you.